Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Geomologist Presents. I have a very special guest. Today, I have Joe Salvador. I'm going to pronounce it that way, Joe. Apologies
That's
in
perfect.
advance.
That's
Of
perfect.
Raven God Games, the designer of Reaver, an up-and-coming Kickstarter that probably, I think we're going to try to put this out when the Kickstarter starts or shortly thereafter. But he's been very kind to come and talk to myself, and you might have another guest who you will know him when you see him, to make a character. So I think that's important, to show people, preview in a way the upcoming Kickstarter and the game system. And I'm very excited about it for sure. And you already put the preview on the Kickstarter, and it's sword and sorcery role-playing game Reaver. Why sword and sorcery? Why Reaver?
Well, thanks for inviting me on. We have some history in
Yeah.
gaming together and whatnot, and I appreciate it. Uh, so, so what is Reaver? Reaver is my take on a sword and sorcery game, and excuse me. I know there's a lot of different games out there. We have the variety of Conan games. We have Barbarians of Lemuria, Hyperborea. All these games are they're great games, and they all do something similar, but they do it in their own way. And that's exactly what Reaper's doing. A lot of those games kind of focus on a specific sort of style of sword and sorcery. Um, Hyperborea, for instance, it leans hard into like the weird fantasy,
Mhm.
um, and really just notches that right up. What Reaver does, it treads really closely to the historical adventure fiction sort of sword and sorcery. If you think of Bran Mak Morn, even Conan to some extent, Imaro, you'll be right there. That's what Reaver is trying to emulate. Um, and you know, and probably some of your viewers will know that this has been in the works for several years now.
Mhm.
It was originally going to be an OGL game, like an OSR style take on sword and sorcery. And over time, it just grew. I started to adopt, I guess, more modern game ideas. And then I got rid of some of those as well. Like we used to use advantage and disadvantage, and that's all gone.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's evolved to a point where it's its own thing. It's it's kind of my baby.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
and you said why Reaver? I guess I kind of answered that by thinking along those
Mhm.
ways. But the name, of course, comes from the Conan pastiches
Mhm.
the original Conan works.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed also, what I've liked, and I mean, we might get into this when we talk about, because we're going to try to make some characters, but I noticed that like the origins, um, in your characters are really grounded in fiction. So it seems that you also are taking inspiration from like historical fiction of that sort of, you know,
Yes.
Iron
Yeah,
Age, I guess,
mhm. Yeah, I'm
pre-medieval period,
a
right?
big fan of Bernard Cornwell, Paul Anderson's kind of historical
Mhm.
fiction works. All these kinds of things are really close to my heart. And they do show, I think, in Reaver. And that's obviously intentional. That's what we're trying to emulate and bring to your gaming table.
Right. That's great. Yeah, and I think you want to draw on also traditional mythology from these what would it be? Well, these cultures that you've developed, for the game.
Hmm.
All right. So
Yeah, and
uh,
okay, did you want to talk a little bit about the setting or
yeah, let's talk about the setting, right? Because we did
okay,
say, it's sword to sorcery, and it's
yeah.
based on sort of some historical touchstones.
It
Um,
is, and it's not an ancient Earth setting. It's not the way the Middle Earth is supposed to be pre-Earth, right?
mhm.
But it is very inspired by our own ancient world. There are cultures that are inspired by sort of like Greco-Roman, the Greco-Roman world, or the Egyptian world, or the Mesopotamian world. We have cultures from inspired by those from Africa all the way to Northern Europe. Um, I'm trying to be extremely careful as to not um, make them completely analogous to those cultures. I want to be respectful to those cultures. Coming from a background of in history and anthropology, like I want to be mindful of that. So while, for instance, the Mambani in the setting, the setting is called Senor. The Mambani are kind of an amalgamation of different West African peoples, without being any one of them specifically, and without being too tied to the real world peoples.
Yeah.
So I guess, along those lines, it's an Iron Age world. The bronze and whatnot is still in use. It is not only peopled by humans, but PCs can only be human for now, unless there's a future book that comes out.
Okay.
But there are different sort of like non-human creatures, serpent people and Vormies and ape men, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And like you said, it does cleave close to mythology. So in the setting, rules as written, I guess, there's an other world, and it's kind of up to the GM, but in my mind, the gods are real, or at least some of them are. Because that's sometimes a question in sword and sorcery fiction, right? You don't really know if the gods are real.
Right.
So yeah,
But
that's kind
they're
of
not
written
going to
in.
be like, it's not going to be like Greek mythology where the gods are walking the
No,
earth and
that's
testing
not
people.
right. That's not the way that I run it. I mean, people can run it however they want, right? Like, take the game, make it your own.
Right.
And it's very wide open. It's a wide open game. It's a wide open setting. You can play any type of character you like, and you can do with it how you will. And the game itself, the mechanics of the game aren't necessarily tied to the setting. The setting will be included as something to jump into, basically.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of the rules, let's dive into that. I think one of the most unique things I think that has evolved in the game as I've been privileged to be in the playtest is this dice chain mechanic. So
Yes.
let's talk
So
about that. I
mhm.
don't know if you
Uh,
have if you thought in your mind why you did this, or but let's just talk about the dice chain and how it works. That is
so
really the core mechanic.
it is the core mechanic now. And like I said earlier, like the game evolved to such a great extent. It was originally a D20 game. And wow, you're really kind of challenging my memory. Um, Thinking back, I remember wanting to do, so the term attribute feats is used in Reaper, and I coined that term in Eldritch Tales.
Mhm.
But I knew at the time that I started writing this that I wanted to change it to use some sort of die chain mechanic. Um, and it kind of grew from there. As you were part of the playtest, and we just continually ask questions like, why are we doing this? Does this work? Does this feel like sword and sorcery?
Mhm.
Um, and gradually, the die chain mechanic just kind of took over the game for the good. So it's basically the way it works is that we have a die chain. It goes from D4 to D20 there's a few extra dice in there, the D5, the D14 and the D16. And you don't need to buy special dice. Those can be easily replicated with the regular dice.
Right. For example, D10 divided by 2 round up.
Exactly. Um, when your character gets modifiers to their die rolls, whether it's an attack roll or a defense roll or an attribute feat or a sorcery feat, you modify the die type. So if your character has a D8 attack die, melee die, and they get a +2D, that would go up to D10 and D12. So you'd be rolling a D12 instead of that normal D8, and vice versa. It can go down. So throughout the game, during gameplay, that die is going to be fluctuating up and down. In some cases, your die types can degrade over time, kind of like what is known as the usage die. I have something called the control die, which works very similarly. But also your attributes are dice, right? So
Right.
we got rid of the 3 to 18 a long time ago, and we went to the die mechanic. So if you take sort of attribute damage, your die is degrading, and it
Right,
can be
right.
replenished over time.
Well, yeah, it's good. That's really a good way to do it too, instead of having to, it's just a step and you don't have to calculate, okay, is it, if I lose 1 point of my attribute here, what does that now become? What's the new modifier? It's just a step. And
Right.
and also, right, it's very, the success and failure is very simple, 4 or better, no matter what
Exactly.
die it is, 4 or better.
Exactly.
Right. So when you're poorly skilled, right, you only have a 25% chance at D4,
Mhm.
or if you've been degraded by, trouble
Mhm.
and tribulations, then
Sure.
you're at that stage. Or I mean, it's like a 75% chance, right?
Right.
Right.
I
With
mean, you can
that
go all the way up to what a D20 would be
D20, right?
85%.
85% chance. Yeah.
So yeah, basically what it means is that you can be a really tough character,
Yeah.
or you can be in the dirt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and really, it probably is going to be like lower level characters are not going to be at the like the D20 level,
Right.
right? It seems so.
Right.
But
Barring some sort of like magic
right.
or artifacts or something like that, which depending on the game you're in, probably won't happen.
Mhm.
Um,
Or
yeah, that's
situationally, right?
mhm,
We'll get into some of the other aspects of the game, right?
sure,
Situationally,
sure.
you can
Like,
bump that up, right?
yeah, like your I don't know what would be a good example. I guess like cover and concealment that might
Right.
raise your defense die,
Standard
that kind
thing,
of thing.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Right. So then your attributes are represented by a dice.
hmm
There's no skills, right?
There's
In
no
the
skills. Reaver uses careers like some of the other games do,
Mhm.
uh, in which the character gets 3 careers over the course of their leveling. I should say this is a class-based system.
Okay.
So the character, how do I put it? The character has a variety of elements that go into making it. First is their origin, which is basically their background, their nationality, where they come from. Um, and that provides, there's no mechanical benefit to that. It basically provides a narrative base to work on.
Right.
Um, then you have your character class, which represents sort of your core role in the game and how you approach problem solving, I
So
guess,
it's your role. It's not your like career, right?
right,
It's not
right,
careers like for example Warhammer Fantasy or occupations like Call of Cthulhu. So
hmm
this is your role, like your game
right,
mechanic role, and then you
exactly. And
have
that gives you your class gives you all of your basic abilities, and
Mhm.
the classes are should be pretty familiar to most gamers. I mean, like I said, this game grew out of the USR. Um, so the classes can be very similar to those style of classes,
Right. So
modernized.
we might as well name them, for our
Yeah,
listeners.
yeah. So we have the barbarian, the berserker, the fighter, the magus, which is the fighter mage, the priest, the rogue, the scout, and the sorcerer.
Right.
The sorcerer and the priest both have sort of like subclasses that kind of focus on different types of magic.
Mhm.
Um, but overall, they're very, you know, they're easy enough to work with. How do I put that? Uh, they aren't so different to be confusing, I
Right.
guess.
So they're yeah, it's pretty logical what they are when you pick them up or decide to play them.
hmm
Um, so I guess so. I've been playing a shaman,
hmm
and that is a
Priest,
priest subclass.
right?
Yes,
And
kind of
the
like a
other priest,
spiritualist. It talks to his ancestors or
exactly,
other
exactly.
spirits.
Um, the 3 priest subclasses are the theist, which is kind of like your basic cleric, right?
Mhm.
Um, the shaman, like you said, who is kind of a master of the spirit world, has some ability with sort of like nature and weather, and also the dream world. And then the druid, which is less the D&D style druid and more the Celtic style druid.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, I mean, they do have some, obviously they have some wilderness sort of oriented spells and whatnot. But they're
Mhm.
also like advisors and
Right.
uh, that sort of thing.
Oh, man, cool.
Yeah, so
And what can we name the sorcerer subclasses now, and then we can jump into character creation?
yeah, yeah, sure. So those are the Hermeticist, which is kind of like your classic wizard character. The Mystic, which is Kind of like a monk, but also, not so much focused on unarmed combat, but more like they're kind of psychic, basically. They can spirit travel and that kind of thing. And the witch,
Mhm.
and witchery is witchery.
All right. So
Um,
so far in summary, we have a dice, the core mechanic. We have a dice chain mechanic. Your attributes, and I guess your fighting ability is derived
mhm.
from your attributes,
And
correct?
your
And your
class, yeah,
class,
and your class.
and then you determine what dice you're going to be using, say for fighting or for using one of the abilities or skills you might get. Um, there's no like list of skills, but it's just like abilities that you have from
Right.
your career, right?
Right. So then the career, so like I said, there's three elements that go into the class: the origin, then we have the class, I should say the character,
Character.
and then the careers. You get three careers over the course of your, uh, I guess your lifespan as a character. Um, and what they do is they often have a mechanical benefit or they have a narrative benefit. Um, and then they also kind of dictate what sort of skills you would have. But the player has to be their own advocate and say, well, hey, I'm a pirate. Certainly I can climb this rigging easier than somebody else. And when they do that, then the chronicler, the GM, um, is free to give them a bonus of +1 die, raising their die to the next level.
To the
Uh,
appropriate attribute that they would use
right,
to do, and you
correct.
call them, let's just get the wording correct.
The attribute feats.
Attribute feats, yes.
Yeah.
All right, and then you need a 4 or better
Mhm.
on any of these dice,
That's
and
correct. So,
and bonuses and uh, penalties
mhm.
are increasing the type of dice you roll or
Right.
decreasing the dice you
Right.
roll.
So most modifiers in the game will directly affect your die type. There's a few things that will go basically as an addition, but that's something like bonus to your hit points at every level, or uh, a bonus to your damage from your brawn. Yeah.
Also, something unique, player facing mostly.
Yes. Yes. The game is very player facing. There are a few instances where there might be opposed rolls, that kind of thing. But for the most part, when a player character is attacked by an adversary, the player is rolling their defense die. The GM is usually rolling dice. There's a
Mhm.
few like special sort of mechanics in the game that can complicate that, um,
Mhm.
but not too many.
Right. And then I guess there is also a meta currency that we should
Oh yeah,
talk about.
absolutely. We should talk about that. So there's two actually, and they work hand in hand. For the players, they have resolve, and every character starts the session with 2 resolve, except for the rogue, which they have extra resolve basically because they can share it out. Um, you can gain extra resolve through gameplay, um, and you can spend your resolve to do cool things, add extra
Mhm.
damage, or take an extra action, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
You can affect your sorcery with resolve, but you have to be mindful because when you spend resolve, you give the GM, the chronicler, 1 point of peril, and they can use their peril points for their minions uh, in exactly the same way that you can use it.
Okay. And the resolve or peril is used before the die roll, right?
Mhm.
It just bumps the
Yes.
dice up. It's not
Yeah.
additional dice. It's not a
Oh yeah,
re-roll.
yeah. If you can increase your die rolls, you can add extra damage. You can avert death if that
Okay,
happens. You did that actually in one of
I
our
think I
early
did.
sessions.
Yeah, the first
Um,
session, I
it was either
like you were
first or
doing.
second, yeah. Yeah. And really, like I do have a list, but in the book, but it shouldn't be considered, complete. I think that players and GMs out there should feel free to like come up with new expenditures.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess another question regarding that. So does the chronicler begin with peril during the session, or can a character like if a character never uses resolve, does the chronicler never get peril, or could there be
So
situations?
not normally. There are situations where a chronicler can start a um an encounter with peril. Peril does not stick around for the entire game. So when a counter starts and you start to spend resolve, the chronicler gets it. If they don't spend it by the end of the encounter, it goes away. Um,
Oh, interesting.
if
Okay.
yeah, so if you have we were getting a bit more into
That's okay.
the extraneous mechanics, but there's a corruption mechanic. It's called shadow and corruption. If you have a bunch of shadow on you at any given time, you can automatically increase the peril pool for the chronicler.
Okay.
And there are some monsters and adversaries that are basically so powerful they start with peril.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. And they might have abilities that will use some of their peril or boost their
Yes.
damage at the very least, right? So
Exactly. And
increase their chances to hit.
the example that I like to use is like if you're fighting a giant and it smacks you, it might use peril to like throw you a distance or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into character creation.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. I don't know how I'm gonna roll. So
you want me to start off?
Yeah, we're session 0.
Okay.
You're the chronicler.
Okay.
I'm the poor player who showed up at your excited player who showed up at your table.
Yeah. So I would ask you to think about the type of character you want to play.
Okay.
We are going to roll
first though, right?
We don't have to. We can I let you assign your dice where you like.
Oh, okay.
So you can create the character that you want to play.
Okay.
So think about what you might want to play, and then we're going to roll 3d6 6 times.
Okay.
And this is the base rule in the game. It should be familiar to anybody that's ever played D&D. You can change it as you will. There's a few options in the book. There's a stat array, and there's also the 4d6 drop the lowest. Since we're just doing this as a test, we're going to do the 3d6.
Okay. Yeah, let me just get some notes here.
Okay.
Or at least a little notepad on my computer so I can keep track of this. And then let me get to that. All right, so I'll do my first roll. I think I would like to see if I could do the druid. Sounded very intriguing, actually.
Okay.
I know I play a shaman, but maybe we can look at a druid.
Okay.
Especially since you're saying they're less, D&D druid and more, I guess, from the Roman perspective, druid at the very least, right?
Yeah,
the Celtic,
in my
Celtic
mind.
Yeah.
Like I said before, there are certainly some things there that you'll recognize.
Sure.
Yeah, but
okay. I don't know yet. We'll see. Or maybe the Magus, because that seems intriguing too. But I play like warlocks a lot. Anyway, that's what it sounds like a Hyperborean warlock.
Yeah, totally.
Fighter magic user.
Yep, totally.
Okay. So my first roll, that's pretty good. I rolled 15 on the dice.
Okay, so that's a D8.
So D8.
And I have the chart pulled up. So if you wanna roll, I'll just write the dice down.
Great. Okay. So I have I get a D8. Next is a 9.
A 9 is a D6.
D6. Okay. And then that's not so good. Oh, it's 4, 5. That's a 7.
7 is a D5.
D5, yeah. Oof.
So everybody knows there's a chart in the book that you'll be looking at. It's the attribute chart.
Right.
You do your die roll and the cross reference to find your attribute die.
It definitely is OSR because you have like a penalty for low stats.
So. Heck yeah.
All right. However, I got a 12 now.
12 D6.
D6.
Okay.
2 more, right? Or 1 more?
2 more.
Another 7.
Okay. A D5.
And the last one is a 9.
9. That's a D6.
So one exceptional attribute.
2 a little bit low, and then 2 average.
Right.
And I should say now that as you increase your levels, you can add dice. Basically, you can increase your die over time.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, we are making a first level character, just
first level guys. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm going to go to class or origin next.
Okay. Well, let's you can assign your dice if you like now.
Okay.
We can talk about the attributes. They are brawn, agility, stamina, cunning, intuition, and presence. You can, if you want to have a look at the druid, let me go ahead and go down to that. So intuition and presence are kind of like the main attributes for a priest.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So I go to priest, right? First. Is that,
yeah, you can go down there. You're going to be on page 34.
yeah. All right. So, all right. So I'll probably put intuition. You said is the main one.
Yeah, either intuition or presence. Those are both important.
I'll just put a oops. Oh, there's a space. Okay. I'll show the character sheet when it's more, for people to
Okay.
see when it's more filled out.
Yeah.
But this is all the character sheet is available when you were to get the quick start too, right?
Yeah, the character sheet is in there. They'll be able to see it if they'd like to.
Okay. So intuition and presence are so I need a D8 and a D6 there.
Okay.
Because I have D8 and a
And when I say that, I don't want you to think that I'm forcing you to do that. You could totally be like the strongest druid around if you like. It's fine.
no, maybe I'll make him sickly. It's kind of counterintuitive, but oops. All right, so I'll put a D8 in intuition, one of the D6s in presence. I will probably I have two more D6s, right? And then two D5s.
Correct.
So I will have I'll put probably a D6 in agility
Mhm.
and a D6 in cunning.
Okay. That would make your brawn and your stamina D5s.
D5, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm sure that's going to affect my hit points, but that's okay.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking stamina, constitution, but again,
Well, yes, in a way it will.
yeah.
So origins. If you want to think about your origin,
Obviously I don't have to be Celtic. I could be,
Mhm.
and then
Correct.
right the historically, if this is like our touchstone, I mean that Latin culture was
Mhm.
kind of pervasive throughout
Yeah.
Western and Central Europe anyway, all the way
Yeah,
to the Black Sea, right, in our
yeah,
world. So,
absolutely. It was a very large sort of area.
so
And I
maybe,
mean, the history of like the actual druids is a little bit shadowy, I guess.
yeah, sure.
Um, but yeah, you could be any origin you like.
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
How about, well, should we tell them what kind of origins there are? Or I don't know if
There's a
is there too
lot.
many?
I can go over a few. So we mentioned a few of them already, really. So
Mhm.
the Thraxians are the most widespread, and they are basically like a Greco-Roman sort of Mediterranean people. They're imperialists.
Mhm.
Um, we have Amazons, which are what you would expect, sort of like the mythological
Mhm.
Greco uh, lady cultures, matriarchal culture, where they're ruled by queens and men are relegated to the menial tasks.
Mhm.
The Brinisteri are kind of inspired by like post-Roman Wales.
Okay.
Um, let me go down here. I mentioned the Mombani. The
Yeah.
Kemites are part Egyptian and part ancient Egyptian, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, uh, what is the Conan Stygians?
Stygians. Oh, right.
Yeah, so they're Northmen, and we know what they are. Picts, uh, uh, inspired by the historical Pictish people. Yeah, Tweegars, which are kind of uh, desert nomads, although many of them are now sedentary in sort of like coastal cities.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a few. Whatever you would like to pick would be fine.
I don't know. Since they're all as adversaries in our current playtest, Scythians.
Okay,
Scythians.
the Scythians. Okay, yeah, they're yeah, so they are sort of like your steppe nomads, your duration peoples.
Hmm.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. And like I said before, the origins don't come with any kind of attribute bonuses or anything like that. There's no assumptions made about the people. Um, I do have some ideas, possibly for the future about sort of like cultural traits or whatever that people could pick.
Hmm.
But I haven't done anything with it. Just kind of in the back of my mind.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so then next, so I got my
Okay.
origin, my class, I rolled my attributes.
Okay, so let's go to well, let's go back to your class and we'll grab some of the numbers from there.
Okay.
Okay, so priest table. So your
Priest,
first level.
yes.
In your hit point box, just put +2, or in your notes, just put +2 for now. Um, Towards the bottom of your page, you'll see your melee attack dice, and your class melee die is going to start at a D4.
Okay.
Your range die is a D4, and your defense is a D5. Um, I guess we talked about that a bit. I decided to divide those up instead of having a base combat die, just
Hmm.
to add some variety into the characters. So, like the rogue it ends up being the most um, the highest defensed character,
Hmm.
while the fighter is just good all around.
Right.
The scout has the best ranged attacks, that kind of thing.
And this is off
Um,
a table in the class section. Just,
Correct,
you know,
correct.
okay. And sorcery dice.
So yeah, you're going to go back to your sorcery page. You can add your D5 sorcery die in.
Okay.
And do you want to talk about how that works now, or?
Yeah, let's talk about sorcery since I did
Okay.
pick a sorcerer, a spell caster type.
Yeah, so every spellcaster has a sorcery die, and the sorcery die increases as they gain levels. It can be modified by their attributes,
Hmm.
their cunning, their intuition, and their presence. When you want to cast a spell, you roll your sorcery die.
Hmm.
And again, like you said, if it's a 4 or higher, you succeed. Your spell goes off without a hitch. Whatever the effect is, takes effect. If you fail with a 1 to 3, your die degrades. Your D5 would go to a D4. And you have to resist shadow as you have summoned the sort of like
Huh.
the cosmic forces of the world, um, and lost control of it in some manner.
So even a priest has to deal with this.
Yes,
So sorcery
yes.
is
All sorcery is sorcery.
sorcery. Okay.
Uh, and then the only other thing you have to worry about is if you roll a 1, in which case it's a miscast. Every spell has a short miscast chart,
Mhm.
that is, for the most part, related to the spell. So if I don't know if you're casting Thorns, which is a spell that creates thorns all around you or what have you, and you miscast it, you might have thorns grow out of your skin
Right.
and hurt, something like that.
That's on the
Um,
one though. That's on the
that's if you
miscast.
roll a 1.
Right.
That's if
Okay.
you roll a 1. Yeah. And there's, any sort of like other terrible things that might happen as a miscast.
Right.
So like I
It's
said,
spell dependent. It's kind of
exactly. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
It's
the tables aren't as big as like the as the DCC, but you have like different things happen at different spells. It's not like always the same table.
right.
It's just spell dependent,
Right.
which I think
You
is
roll most of them, not, I don't think all of them exactly, probably 98% of them have a short table you can roll on, like 3 or 4 effects.
okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Um, so incidentally, so as your sorcery die degrades, obviously your ability to cast spells gets more risky during your adventuring day.
And but there's no limit to the number of spells you can cast as long as you
As long
right.
as you still have your die available, you can cast. Once your D4 is degraded to 0, then you
Then
can't
you're
cast
done.
anymore.
Okay.
And that would replenish after you take, an overnight rest, a long rest.
Okay.
Okay, so, um, right. You have a few other things there that you have to think about. Your base resolve, we can set that at 2.
The base where is resolve? There
On
it
the,
is. I got it.
yep, okay. You gain 2 feat proficiencies. And if you look at the underneath your attributes, they're the checkboxes.
Hmm.
You start with cunning feat proficiency,
Okay.
and you can pick another one of any one you want.
Okay. Um, right, and this is different than like any bonus you get like on that first table. Like a D8 gives like a +1 dice bonus, right? For
Uh,
stuff.
yes. This is separate from
This
that.
is separate. Okay, so I
Yeah.
will take cunning and agility feats.
Okay.
He's a sneaky druid.
There you go. I like that. And then let's see here. I lost my page here. I was flipping around.
Mhm.
Your weapon and armor proficiencies are going to be found under your druid faith. So each priest has a faith.
Mhm.
And like we discussed, it would be druid, theism, or shamanism.
Mhm.
Um, so we can go to that.
Okay, I'm
Let's
there.
just okay. You can, I guess you can cut and paste your weapons and armor into the space available. But you can
Mhm.
use daggers and clubs and javelins, morning stars, and a variety of other weapons, including like swords and things.
Okay.
Um, you have a number of special abilities there. The Druidic Tongue, longevity, magical affinity, allowing you to use things that a sorcerer can use, like scrolls and whatnot.
Mhm.
You're a skinwalker, so whenever you cast a skinwalking spell on yourself, you get a bonus to it. That's basically polymorph.
Yeah.
Spellcasting, obviously, and then you are considered to be part of an order with the Hierophant ability, which is
Right now
less
you.
than an ability.
Yeah. So longevity doesn't come till 8th level,
Mhm. Right,
and skinwalking comes also later.
right, right. You can't. Yeah, that's a higher level spell, so you wouldn't be able to get it until then.
Yeah. Cool.
Um, right,
And
and then you can
you
copy
get
those down.
the druidic tongue, and it says that druidic orders are highly stratified and organized with the leader types. And that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of inspired by like AD&D, right? Like where you have to prove yourself to uh gain the highest mantles within the order.
Okay. So I guess now it's just the derived stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Um,
equipment, I would
the,
guess.
the equipment, I actually have a few things here that you can choose from, so we don't have to go through and buy equipment, but we'll talk about how it's done.
Okay. Yeah.
So we go back to uh, sort of our guide with equipment, not unlike old school games. You're going to roll 3d8 times 10, and then you would buy your equipment with that.
Okay.
And to spare your viewers the long shopping trip, you can do that later.
Yeah. We don't
Um,
have to do that now. That's fine.
um, hit points. Okay, so hit points are a little bit different.
Hmm.
The way we do hit points is you have 10
Okay.
plus a roll of your stamina die at first level. So you roll a d5.
So I roll a d5. Okay. Oh, d5. So I got an 8. So 4. I got 8 on a d10. So 4.
4. Okay, so that's 14 plus
Okay.
your class hit point adjustment, which was 2. So you
Yes.
have 16.
16 hit points. That's pretty good.
Mhm. And if you had a higher stamina, you would also have a hit point bonus, but you
I
don't.
do not. Do I get a hit
Um,
point loss because I have a that
no,
d5 of stamina? Okay.
no, you don't. I don't penalize you that way. And then as you go up in levels, hit points are pretty static. Um,
Okay.
you'll still get your, if you had a hit point bonus, you would get that at every level, and at every level, your class gives you hit points. Um, but like I said, it's pretty static, and it lends to the sense of danger in the game.
Cool. Yeah, I think
So
that's pretty good. So you have still have some good staying power at first level, it seems, because of
mhm,
that base of 10.
right,
Um,
right.
right. And then
It is sword and sorcery, so we want you to be I want you to be able to be a hero, right? You want to be able to do things.
mhm,
But I still want the player character to recognize that there's some danger in the world.
okay.
Um, so defense will okay, so we have your class defense die.
Yeah.
You have a high agility, you had a D6 agility.
At a D6.
Okay. So if you had a higher agility, it could modify your defense. As
Mhm.
it is, your defense will just be the base.
Right.
If you get a shield or something whenever you buy equipment, that
Mhm.
could also improve your defense.
Right. And
It's
then
important to
same thing with melee attack and range attack dice. Right.
exactly,
I don't.
exactly.
I have a D6. I don't get a bonus. Right.
Correct.
I
Correct.
have an intuition of D8, so that I guess might give me a bonus
That'll give you a
for.
bonus to your some of your sorcery feats, right? So I guess we could talk about that too. So all spells are tied directly to one of the three mental
Mhm.
attributes. Um, that is called the focus attribute for the spell. If you are casting for this character, if you're casting an intuition-based spell, you improve your sorcery die from was it a D5 to a D6? Right. You get that plus 1D. And if you have higher human abilities can go all the way up to D14. So you can actually get quite a good bonus
Oh wow. Okay.
to those rolls. Um, so we have attack bonuses, we have your defense. Damage reduction, if you had armor, armor does not stop you from getting hit. It limits the damage you take.
So it's
Um,
damage reduction. That's correct, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got your resolve done.
Mhm.
So you are Scythian. We can do your languages.
Okay.
Let me see here real quickly. So your first language would be Scythian,
Mhm.
and here's my language table. You will get one additional language.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe Thraxian, because that's like the big. Is
yeah,
that right?
that's a big empire.
Is
Yeah,
that like?
absolutely.
And is there any common or trade tongue?
There's no, yeah, I didn't put a trade tongue in this. I mean, the way I imagine it, and I've kind of always done this since kind of back in the day gaming, is
Mhm.
that the dominant culture, sort of like of an area, provides the trade tongue. So like you said, like Thrax is the biggest sort of kid on the block, I guess.
Mhm.
So Thraxian is a very common language. So it's known by merchants. It's known by rulers and diplomats.
Mhm.
It's priests would know it.
Right. Yeah. There's also on the character sheet if people wanted to fill out, which we probably won't do today. Height, weight, all that.
Yeah, there's a space for you to enter. Well, if you're using the digital sheet, you can just enter an image for your character's portrait, or you can draw one if you have a physical sheet printed. Um, let's see. Oh, we didn't get your career, man. We
Yeah.
skipped the
Career.
career.
Yeah. Let's pick
So
the career.
so if we go to the
Where are those? Can we go back to the?
we're going to
Is it?
go
It's
to
under classes.
page. No, it's actually in its own chapter.
Okay.
Um, it's going to be page 55. Uh, I'll kind of like pick some of these out just to talk about really quickly. So we have the acrobat, which
Mhm.
um, is what you would think, a tumbler, a tightrope walker, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And like I said, that they all get a feature. Their feature
Oh, okay.
is that they gain a +1 defense against any free attack made against them, and they can also reduce damage from falling. Um, then I also mentioned that there are some that are like more like narrative based um, features. So the Wanderer, who is just somebody who is well traveled, they know the routes, the trade routes, the backwoods trails, and all of that. They know two additional languages, and when the game takes you into a new region, and the chronicler can decide what a new region is, could be a city or it could be a country, what have you.
And are
You
those
can roll.
careers limited by your class?
No, any class can take any career. So a fighter or a barbarian might actually be able to gain some sort of minor magical ability, or a sorcerer might take the soldier career and be able to use some heavier weapons, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So the Wanderer that gives you two additional abilities, and then also whenever you enter a new region, you can roll a feat of presence, and with a success, you know an NPC in the area.
That's
Like
cool.
I said, that's kind of broad open. It's totally open to the GM to interpret that. And
I think I'm gonna
yeah,
have him be a wanderer based on my
okay,
conception.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Um, so the Wanderer, so he gets two new languages.
Mhm. And something else we can mention about careers is that they are not tied necessarily to any like level or I guess the ongoing story of the game. So uh if you start the game as a wanderer and then during the actual gameplay you become a mercenary, you don't have to take the mercenary career. You could totally take something and like thug, since it's on the same page,
Mhm.
and just describe that as a part of your backstory that is yet to be revealed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and I think that that kind of happened in gameplay. I know with my character, Escald the Lame, the shaman, Hibernian
Hmm.
shaman. He found a book of alchemy.
That's right.
So he started as an aesthetic, right?
Hmm.
Going through the trials that his spiritual mentor and teacher was putting him through, but then he found this book of alchemy, and his second career is alchemist. So
That's right. That's right.
that's pretty cool. I like that it can arise through gameplay. It's not limited,
Hmm.
um, and it's not, it's something that you can be like a secret from your
Hmm.
origin or from your backstory or come out through gameplay.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but the three careers is something that really I guess it opens up the options for a character build. Like this doesn't have a huge, this isn't like Pathfinder where you're
Mhm.
building a character from level one. You have to do certain things to do this thing later.
Mhm.
But there is a build in sort of a narrative sense where, um, like Conan. Conan was a thief. He was a mercenary. He's kind of everything. But
Mhm.
if we think about him in terms of the game here, he would be a barbarian. He would be a Cimmerian as his origin.
Mhm.
He would be a thief. He could be a mercenary at a later
A
later
freebooter at some
level,
point,
and then a pirate or freebooter,
and
right?
then a king. I don't know if that's
King,
something.
whatever, yeah. And obviously, like I said, Conan's kind of everything. So maybe
Yeah, yeah.
that's a bad example. Depending
Right,
on the story, he could have any three careers, right?
right, right.
Um, but exactly, it opens it up. I mean, you could totally make the Beastmaster. If the Beastmaster is he a fighter or a barbarian?
I don't know. He was like a farmer, right? So I say he's a
No, he's
fighter.
fighter. So he'll
Yeah,
be a fighter.
yeah. He'd just be
He
a
could
fighter.
take he could take
Farm.
hmm,
His first career would be farmer. Second career would be beastmaster or something.
farmer. There's yeah, he could be
Yeah,
uh Beastmaster.
yeah.
And then he could even take, he had the vision ability, right? So he could take I think it's seer would
Oh,
allow
neat.
him to do something kind of similar to that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So
fun. All right. Well, I'll briefly show my character sheet
okay,
so people can look at it.
I'll correct it.
Yeah, and yeah, and Joe can correct it.
I'm teasing, of course.
So we see, yeah. So there we see, Erlich the Hermit,
Nice. I like it.
Scythian or Scythicon, uh,
Scythican with an extra C in it.
let's
There you go.
see, level one priest druid. There's his stats there, and then the
Mhm.
black is the there's like
The,
two boxes because remember, as Joe mentioned, these can go down based on damage or other effects, right?
right.
Exposure, right? And then he took a bonus to agility and a bonus to cunning.
Hmm.
And then he's got his hit points here. No
Yeah.
shadow yet or
No shadow
corruption.
yet. Oh, yeah. You would have a max corruption. That's based on your presence.
Oh, okay. So that's a
Something
six,
something we skipped. That will be.
zero.
There's
Okay.
actually a chart to look at. So a D6 gives you a 12 maximum corruption.
Oh, okay. Nice. We'll see. It's a good thing we looked at it. See,
Yep.
then my defense dice doesn't change. It might there may be modifiers. Are there
Hmm.
any modifiers from shields or
Yeah, there's different kinds of shields, small
I don't
shield,
get anything
large
from my
shield.
class or agility?
So your D5 is your base class defense die. So that would also
Yes.
go in that little box up there. You have no agility chain modifier. Um,
Yep.
if you do take a shield, I believe druids can use small shields at least. So that would give you a +1
Right.
D on your defense. moving it up to a D6.
Which one? A
and-
small shield would make it a D6.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
and then you have
Snake shield, no, small.
something different.
So it's +1 D.
D, that's right. And
And
you can
then
see
that
the
change.
die chain right on there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, the die
going up and
chain's
down.
there. Yeah, actually, so I've had the ability to run this a couple times at cons, run a Reaver, and gotten a lot of good feedback from it in its earlier
That's awesome,
stages.
man.
So, well, yeah, we had a good call with another designer, who played in the game, and
Yeah.
it was a really, it did change some things.
It did. It was very helpful. It was very helpful.
So so then, but here's like, I know players would have like little token, and we're putting it on the die chain, and when die would go up, they'd go up, they'd move it up and down.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty nice, pretty handy.
It's funny. I mentioned before, like, I've really only, until I went to a con and ran this in person, I had never run it. So I didn't think about tokens or anything like that. I was always running it online, and so many ideas came out of that.
Right. So armor, I'm not going to worry about that right now, but that would give like damage reduction.
Correct. And that's a straight reduction to damage you take. So
Okay.
-1, -2, -3.
Right. And then I have my class abilities here,
Mm-hmm.
my weapons and armor, and then my druidic tongue. Because I mean, the druid seems to become quote unquote more powerful as you progress. And I took Wanderer, which I get 2 new languages, and I chose them up here. Oh, I got Scythican, Thraxian, and then my druidic tongue. And the 2 languages I took were Chemite and Hibernian.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
But I have an advantage. I know a little bit about the world. I was also intrigued by the sort of the Chemites being like Mesopotamian, Egyptian mix. So that's kind of cool too. Then down here is sorcery. Right.
Yeah, and then that's where you
D5
can see your focus modifiers from your intuition is auto inserted there.
And
then
then
you would,
I haven't chosen any spells. So do you get a number do you choose your spells, right?
yeah, you get, oh man, that's a good question actually. I believe you get 2 spells
2
at
spells.
first level.
Okay.
Just double check that. Druid spellcasting. That's your spell list. 1 initiate level spell chosen from your specific spell list.
Okay. I would look that up in the book and choose that spell at some point.
Right. And
Yeah, so
the spell lists are they're meant to like guide, I don't know if guide's the right word. I guess they're meant to describe the character's type of magic. The various lists are geared towards certain ways of I guess approaching sorcery or that sort of thing.
Yeah. So here is the character sheet, like everyone saw. Pretty straightforward, pretty, I think, easy to follow once you know where everything is. It's a good layout. Yay.
We worked on it for quite a while.
Yeah. But yeah, so
very cool, very cool.
Cool. Well, so I hope people who have watched this will be encouraged, excited about Reaver. I know as you put the preview on, you've already had, or the teaser, you already had some questions. So hope this answers some. Feel free to contact myself, and I can get you to Joe for the questions. Or, I mean, of course, on the Kickstarter you have comments, so you could comment there as well when that comes about. But any last words, Joe?
No, I just want to thank you for putting this together. And I want everybody to know that we do plan on running a gameplay session.
Yes.
To follow this up. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it, man. I really appreciate it. You can, I guess people can find the Kickstarter through the normal channels. They can go to ravengodgames.com and find it there. They can get on my Discord. All the links are available on the website.
Right. Well, great. Yes. So again, I'm thinking this is going to come out simultaneously to the start of the Kickstarter. So the Kickstarter, I'm going to say, is ongoing. And like Joe said, there will either already be, we plan to do a play test, or a, show like a short combat session or something, maybe do some exploration in the future, see how like the attribute feats work as well as the combat, and we'll do that in the future, and that may or may that'll come out either during the Kickstarter or it'll already be done by the time the Kickstarter is out. So,
Yep.
So thank you guys, thank you everyone for listening, and you'll play some Reaver.
Thanks, folks.